And it's good to see those of you who cannot be with us, but who will be taking a look at this video in just a moment. Today we are going to talk about teacher track and what you're going to be doing to help out with passing. We're going to talk about the novel writing project, and then I'm going to show you the novel graphic organizer. I do want to share teacher track. It's interesting. I continue to become educated myself continually. I've taken classes every single year of my teaching career, whether they are classes for credit or not, whether they're short little workshops. I am always learning, and I want to share with you that one thing over the years that I find to be really important is that if you want students to do the reading, you need to give them something to do with the reading, and you need to hold them accountable. Okay, so by holding accountable, what does that look like? That can look like a graphic organizer, such as the one I have here. That could be a quiz. That could be a little project of some sort. That could be participating in a Padlet or a Flipgrid. So it can be all sorts of things that you can do, but you definitely want to hold students accountable for doing that reading. So I just wanted to share that with you since you are a teacher track class. So it was just in the last couple of days I've been wrestling with whether or not I was going to do my same teacher track lesson for passing that I've done in past classes that were face-to-face, and I have decided to open up the opportunity for my teacher track students to help with introducing and or teaching the chapters in the book. There are 3 parts of the book. There's part 1, which has 4 chapters. There's part 2, which has 4 chapters. And then there's part 3, which has 4 chapters, okay? And the first part is called Encounter. The second part is called Re-encounter. And the third part is called Finale, okay? And so depending on how students sign up, I'm going to assign you particular chapters and dates to prepare your presentation. So I want to show you, even before I go into the teacher track lesson, I would like to show you this really super quick and easy sign-up sheet. Very simple. I spent 30 seconds making it this morning at about 9:14 a.m. I had it on my list of things to do. And so you just are going to sign your name below, and I will assign you either a chapter or a set of chapters depending on the number of people. I really encourage you to take part in this. The more students that do this, the better it is for our class. And what I have found is that the classes really enjoy having you participate, and I appreciate having you participate. So it ends up being a win-win, and it gives you an opportunity to do a little bit of teaching. So let me share with you just briefly. You'll have an opportunity to go back and take a look what you're going to be doing. And I know that when I was getting ready to teach, you know, I wrote an awful lot of lesson plans that I never taught, that I just turned in. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to get in front of the class on Zoom and showcase what it is you know. I will share with you that all of you have the option to share your screen. So for example, if I hit stop share, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. I'm going to change this to gallery view. That if you look at the bottom, it's either the bottom or the top. It's usually the bottom. In the center, there is a green arrow, and it says share screen. all of you should have that option. Am I correct that you have that option? If I am, can you put a thumbs up?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so you all have that option. When I'm not sharing my screen, then you're able to share your screen, and I have that on purpose. Thank you, Carlos, for the thumbs up. The thumbs up, by the way, that Carlos just did to the right of share screen, there's a little happy face with a plus that says reactions, and you're able to do a little thumbs up and a few other little emoji type things as well. All right, so I'm going to go back to sharing screen. So thank you, Martha. I'm just sharing that with you so that you understand that if you are in teacher track, you'll have that opportunity to do that. So I have a little teacher track overview. I actually have quite a few different links to things that would be helpful. And in fact, I highly recommend that you go to File and you make a copy for yourself so that beyond this class, you have this available to go back and take a look, because this is an excellent reference for you that you will go back and take a look at. And I have some practices. I even have a Quizlet on pedagogical terms. But I just wanted to scroll down and share with you what you're going to be doing. So you're going to have approximately 20 minutes. That might change depending on how many students sign up. So when I say 20-ish minutes, I will verify that with you. I will be sending an announcement out in your class saying that so-and-so will be doing XYZ. You will have this much time. And what's going to happen is you're going to teach a lesson and or give an activity that can be used in Zoom. I will be the one with the Zoom link. You'll just follow the Zoom link that you always do as a student. If there's enough students, we will have breakout rooms. And in fact, I'm going to be advertising this so that hopefully we do have enough students so that you can do that if you would like. And if you end up needing some more time, you can talk with me ahead of time. It probably can be arranged. You're going to choose a chapter to present. I'm actually going to change that. I'm going to be choosing the chapter. Your teacher will assign you chapter or section. The reason why I'm choosing is because it just depends on who's signing up for it. You're going to revisit the writing project to see what students will have to compose to showcase their understanding of the novel. So when I create activities for you to do, I'm really trying to create activities that directly correlate with the work that you're doing in the class. And in this case, it's the novel writing project. And then you're going to choose a standard from the California Standards for the Teaching Profession, known as the CSTP, that are linked. And I think the link actually might be up here. Okay, so that yes, link to the bottom of page 1 that you're going to try to focus on for this particular lesson. So there's a lot of standards, and they're numbered, and then there's substandards. And so you're going to choose something that you're going to focus on. Even if you do the others as well, you're going to focus on the one for your reflection, which you'll see in a minute. Then you're going to create a lesson plan, and I have several links to different lesson plans and articles, and choose one that works for you. And it's okay that you edit any of these plans. It's supposed to work for you in our class. And I want to share with you that the audience, I want to write this down if I don't have it written down. And the audience are your peers. Okay, so even if you're going to be an elementary school teacher, the lesson should be directed towards your peers, not elementary school students or middle school students or even high school students. And then before you teach it, I'd like you to practice it a few times. You should use a timer. And then I have this blank minutes. We'll verify what the minutes are. You may want to have an audience, and I know it may feel a bit embarrassing to do this, but if you can work out the kinks before you present, that's a good idea. When I had to do lessons for my, every time I interviewed for a job, I had to do a lesson plan, and so will you. So this is good practice. And it's funny because you feel really comfortable with it in your head, but then when you start to present it, you feel a little nervous. But I do want to share that everybody's just excited to see what you're doing. And just like I make mistakes and I just fix them along the way, you've just noticed me doing that, right? That I make mistakes, something's missing. If you just make the fact that people make mistakes, that's normal, not to be afraid of mistakes. That's just how it is in life, not just as a teacher or a learner. Then students don't care. They just know that their mistakes are forgivable, as are yours. Then you're going to present it to the class, and some of you are going to be presenting quickly, like you might be presenting as early as next week. Some of you might be presenting in a couple of weeks. So if you are in teacher track, I need you to sign up ASAP. I'm going to send that out as an announcement. And I want to tell you that your presentation is not tied to your credit is not tied to your performance. So if you do everything here, you will get credit for doing the assignment. And this is a substitution for the final quiz in the class, which is based on theory. So I'm telling you that now. It is not written here, but it is a substitution, although you could take the final quiz on theory for fun if you want to. It just won't count against you, okay? So it's not tied. As long as you do everything, even if your lesson is a flop, and they never are flops. I've done this for many, many years, and I've never seen a flop, you know. I just want to share with you that it's not tied to your credit, so you don't need to worry about that. And then finally, you must reflect on it after the fact. It would be useful to think about these questions ahead of time, though. So as a student, I always look through the entire assignment ahead, just like we're going to be looking at the writing project as a class in just a few minutes ahead. But it's a good idea to look at these questions ahead of time to think about what you're going to do. And then finally, I'd like you to organize your work using the number system above and put it in a space of some sort, such as Google Sites, or linking parts of it to Google Docs. And then you're going to turn it into me via Canvas, and I'll have a space for you to turn that in. If you're not part of teacher track, obviously this is not going to count for you nor against you. This is for my teacher track students. Do I have any questions from my teacher track people?
So the lesson plan should be 20 minutes long, right?
Approximately. And what's going to happen is I will verify that within the next couple of days.
Okay, and basically what we're doing is that we're creating a lecture and activity, right?
Yes.
Okay, so something similar to what we would do for a Dell 100 and 200.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Anybody else? And don't worry, for those people who are not in our Zoom session right now, I'm going to send this out in an announcement. Okay. So now everybody who's not in teacher track, it's now your turn to pay attention. So if you were playing a game on your phone or doing something else, this is a good time to pay attention here. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about the novel writing project and the novel graphic organizer. And I'm super excited about your novel writing project because I actually spent part of my weekend adding a little component to it that I think you're going to find to be really interesting. Okay. So I changed it from a regular sort of scholarly essay, and I made it into a book review. So I'm super excited. That's the new part. So I do want to share an overview and share this little quotation here. Authors do not supply imaginations. They expect their readers to have their own and to use it. And so I share that with you because when you are reading a novel, you are expected to fill in a lot of these gaps. Okay, so you are imagining what the character looks like, how they act, how they sound. Even if there's descriptions there, you are imagining what is there, and you're also filling in the gaps of what is not there. So what is not there, just like in other parts of literature, what's not stated is actually just as important and sometimes even more important than what is stated. So you being able to read between the lines is really important, and utilizing theory to analyze a text actually allows you to really sort of hone in and focus in on one aspect. So I appreciated this quotation from Nella Larson. I have a little video on Canvas that I encourage you to take a look at, a little bio of her. So the overview is that Nella Larson's Passing is an astonishing book about two women struggling not just with what it meant to be Black in America in 1929, but with gender conventions, the performance of femininity, the institution of marriage, the responsibilities of motherhood, and the ways in which all of those forces intersect. Okay, so what you're going to do for our writing project is you're going to write a book review, and I'm going to open this up in just one moment and present it to you, but I want to show you the writing prompt first, the rest of it. So you're going to write a book review where you weave a character analysis within. And you're going to choose one of the following for your character analysis. So you're either going to use feminism or queer theory to analyze the relationship between Irene and Claire. And I want you to remember to pay attention to the fact that Irene is the narrator. And whoever is the narrator is going to determine the story that is being told. So if you switched narrators, just like for the short story, if you switch the narrator of Sunny's Blues, for example, it changes the story. If you switch the narrator of Passing from Irene to anybody else, it changes the story. So she impacts the story as the narrator. You are going, or for your character analysis, you are going to use either feminism or queer theory to analyze the key male characters in the novel. Okay, so you're going to do either one, not both. The length is going to be 750 words. As a rule of thumb, 250 words is a page that is a 12-point font, double-spaced, 1-inch margins, but you can again always look and see what the page numbers are, and I believe it's in Tools, and we see the word count here. You can even keep the word count while typing, okay? So going to word count on Google Docs is through Tools. It's worth 20% of your grade. Now I want to share the sources, and the first one is going to sound a little bit punitive, but I cannot overemphasize this little factoid here. You must use Passing. You must use quoted evidence and details from the entire novel. This is critical to earn a grade above a C. I added this little last part to just hit this idea home, that if you just choose to use a little bit of quotations for your character analysis, just from one part of the novel, you're not going to do well. I need to see that you've read the entire novel and that you can take evidence from different parts of it.
So basically we need a quote from encounter, re-encounter, and finale, at least 3.
Yes, at least.
Okay.
And details. Details can count as well. You do need to use terminology from Parker's Feminism and Queer Theory. And David, later on when we end the meeting, I'm going to ask you to stay a moment. I want to ask you to do something for me. Okay. And then I want you to add a visual and include it as a figure that goes with your analysis in some meaningful way, just like you have been doing. You must follow MLA format. Please consider title, page numbering, and text citations and works cited, even though you're doing a book review, okay? And I want you to use the third person, even though you are giving your, when we get to the book review part, you're giving your scholarly opinion about the book. I still want you to write in the third person, okay? Any questions about the character analysis or the parameters? Okay. All right, so I'm going to go to the book review right now. And I will tell you, teacher track people, if you're using Google Slides to present your lesson, I have found that on Zoom that using present has caused me problems. So while if we were in the face-to-face class, I would use the present option. On Zoom, I do not. This is just a little tip because I don't like to keep this open. I like to have it be in present, but I'm not going to due to Zoom. Okay, so this is thinking about writing a book review. And I have created this specifically for Nella Larson's Passing. Excuse me. All right, so I want to share a little bit about what a book review is. So while they vary in tone, subject, and style, they do share some common features. First of all, a book review gives the reader a concise summary of the book. If the audience has not read it, the review is careful to avoid spoilers. Now, everyone in this class will have read Passing, so I don't want you to worry about avoiding spoilers. If you were going to do a book review on Amazon for a book though, or create some other scholarly book review, that part is actually really important where you give just enough details so somebody knows if they want to read it without spoiling the end. Second, and more importantly, a review offers, excuse me, a critical assessment of the content. This involves your reactions to the work under review, what strikes you as noteworthy, whether or not it was effective or persuasive, and how it enhanced your understanding of a particular topic. So the topic of this book, I am sharing it with you right now, is passing, racial passing, which was done, and you're going to see a little information about that, about passing from being considered African American to being white, very specifically, okay? And I normally assign a film that I show in class, and I'm thinking about potentially showing it to you on Zoom because I don't think you can get a copy of it easily enough. I may check and see if Canopy offers it or ask the library at Cerritos. So I'm going to be looking into that this week. I'm thinking about it because I think the film will help you understand passing and all that goes with it Okay. And then, so that's the topic. So we're reading the novel called Passing, and it shares the story of Claire and Irene and others, but it is about passing, and I want you to understand what passing is within the context. And we're, like I said, we're going to talk about that a little bit more, just not today. I want you to read a bit of the novel first. And then in addition to analyzing the work, a review often suggests whether or not the audience would appreciate it. So was this a good book? Would you recommend this to others? Okay. Okay, so this slide is really important, and it goes along with your writing project because it breaks down what I'm asking you to do in words. So you're going to write an introduction, and it's going to be 250 words, and I'm going to talk to you in the next slide a little bit more about what goes into your introduction. You're going to give a summary of the content. I want you to include the genre. The genre is a novel, okay? Yeah, I also want you to give a summary of the content in terms of literary elements. So go back to the literary elements, plot, theme, characters, and you're going to hit the highlights here. Okay, so obviously you're not going to write a bunch about every element, and you can choose to privilege one or two elements above the rest. So you may like highlight character just a little bit, but really focus in on theme. For example, you may decide to privilege conflict, or you know what I mean? You can choose what you're going to privilege, okay? And then you're going to do a theoretical analysis, which you saw on the writing project itself. You're going to choose your option found within the writing prompt. That is going to be 600 words. So it's going to be a little over, it's going to be like 2.5 pages. Okay?
Professor.
Yes.
I have a question. So the book review, the book review isn't the writing project, right?
It is the writing project.
Oh, it is. Okay. So
it's the writing
part
project.
of it.
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to write a book review as your writing project, and right now I'm going over the word count. This is linked within the writing project. It says write a book review, and you see that it's in blue. You're going to click on that to get to this. But the theoretical analysis, the sources, etc., are found in that initial writing project. Okay, so these two are linked together. The book review is linked within the writing project itself.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And the reason why I have a whole presentation on this is that you have not created a book review before, so I wanted to go over that.
Okay.
All right, and then you're going to do an evaluation. Okay, so this is going to be really your opinion, but again, it's going to be told in the third, or written in the third person. And so you're going to be answering this question: does the author write, using a style that suits the story being told? Okay. Then you're going to do a recommendation. Again, this is from you, written in the third person. Is this book recommended? Who would benefit from reading this? Okay. And then finally, you're going to have a conclusion. And this is where you're going to balance the book's strengths and weaknesses. And in order to unify your evaluation, this needs to balance the book's strengths and weaknesses in order to unify your evaluation. For example, did the body of your review have 3 negative paragraphs and 1 favorable one? What did they all add up to? So, meaning that overall, would somebody want to read this book? Is this a good book? But you're thinking about everything that you've written here, okay? Any questions about this?
So, it's just kind of a little unclear to me.
Okay, so let's narrow that down. And so try to figure out and ask me which part is unclear for you.
So the 600 words, is that part of the 1,750 words, or is that adding on to it?
No, it's not adding on to it. All of these words right here add up to 1750.
Okay, all
All
right.
right. And if they don't, somebody add them up really quickly right now. If they don't, let me know and I'll fix it.
I'm not using a calculator because I'm a teacher.
It does. It does.
It does. It adds up to 750.
Mhm.
Okay.
Hi,
because-
Professor. I have a question.
Yes. Hi, Caroline.
Hi. So within this book review, we also have to include Parker's theories.
Yes. And Parker would be included right here in the theoretical analysis.
Oh, okay, so it's not like a separate paragraph.
No, it's
Okay.
the same thing. So this is your whole book review. Okay. The theoretical analysis is woven within to the book review, and it is right here. It's the 600 words.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome, and I'm glad I can answer that question 10 different times, and that's okay. This is different. I know this is different from what we've done, so I'm happy with the questions.
So is this would this be considered like our final then?
It's the final project that you're doing, but you're going to be taking a little quiz on theoretical analysis unless you are one of my teacher track presenters.
Can you repeat that? I'm so sorry.
This is the final big project, but there is going to be a final quiz on theoretical analysis. And everybody's going to take that unless you're one of my teacher track presenters.
Professor, I had a quick question.
Yes.
It's a little off topic, but it's about the theoretical quiz. Is that going to be a multiple choice or fill in the blank?
Yes, multiple choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, and so do we have the option to choose between the quiz or the presentation, or does teacher track have to do the presentation?
Okay, this is how I'm going to say it. I would like teacher track to do the presentation. I am not making it a requirement.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the teacher track presentation is the whole thing in total, like the whole writing project, the final writing project, we're presenting it, or?
Yeah, well, you're going to be presenting it on various dates, which I will give you, depending on which chapters you're assigned.
Okay.
Okay, so can I move forward? I'm going to share a little bit more about the book review itself. This is the most important slide here, though. I do want to point out. So, any other questions?
Is this also going to be written in third person?
Everything's written in third person, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Some book reviews are not. That's why I'm really like hitting that point home. This is. All right. Let's go to the introduction here. So in your introduction, the name and the author and the book title and the main theme of the book should be here. Relevant details about who the author is and where he or she stands in the genre or field of inquiry. So you would give a little bit of background on Nella Larson, basically. The context of the book and or your review, placing your review in a framework that makes sense to your audience, alerts the reader to your take on the book. Perhaps you want to situate the book about the Cuban Revolution, this is just an example, in the context of the Cold War rivalries between the United States and the Soviet Union. Another reviewer might want to consider the book in the framework of Latin American social movements. Your choice of context informs your argument. So passing and the themes within, you're going to situate that within some sort of context. Now, my recommendation would be to situate it within either feminist theory or queer theory. That's my recommendation. But you could decide that you want to put it within the context of racism, and racism in the United States right now, racism in the United States before. You can choose a different sort of context for your overall book review, or you can choose to narrow it to the character analyses. That is up to you. And then you're going to include the thesis of the book. Now, the interesting thing is you're going to have to figure that out, and there can be more than one thesis of the book. If this is a piece of fiction, so it's a little bit different than a nonfiction book. However, the author wrote it, and I want you to imagine yourself as the author. What does the author want the audience to get out of having read this book? That's would be the author's thesis, okay? And then your thesis about the book. Now, your thesis is going to connect, and I'm going to write this in right now. This connects to your theoretical analysis. Okay? That is going to be for sure. I'm going to click here and come back. Okay? So that needs to connect to your theoretical analysis. All right? So I wanted to give you some short samples. I have 3 short samples and then critiques. Just short little examples that have nothing to do with passing, but to just give you an idea of what a book review looks like and what it does, okay? And then we'll be done. I told you that this was going to be shorter, and we're going to be hitting the time. I like to keep it within 45 minutes, but we're going to be a tad longer. Okay, so short sample number 1. And the short samples all are on the same book written by different students, okay? So Judith Bennett's Ale, Beer, and Brewsters in England, Women's Work in a Changing World, 13 to 1600, investigates how women used to brew and sell the majority of ale drunk in England. Historically, ale and beer, not milk, wine, or water, were important elements of the English diet. Ale brewing was low skill and low status labor that was complementary to women's domestic responsibilities. In the early 15th century, brewers began to make ale with hops, and they called this new drink beer. This technique allowed brewers to produce their beverages at a lower cost and to sell it more easily, although women generally stopped brewing once the business became more profitable. Okay, so here's a critique of sample number 1. The student describes the subject of the book and provides an accurate summary of its contents, but the reader does not learn some key information expected from a review. The author's argument, the student's appraisal of the book and its argument, and whether or not the student would recommend the book. As a critical assessment, a book review should focus on opinions, not just facts and details. The summary should be kept to a minimum, and specific details should serve to illustrate arguments. So I really want you to understand that the genre of the book review is different. The theoretical analysis that you're weaving in to part 3 of the book review is similar to the theoretical analyses you've done before. But this is a helpful little critique because basically sample number 1 is like a book report, a summary, and nothing more. And that's not what a book review is. So let's look at sample number 2. This is written by a different student. Judith Bennett's Ale, Beer, and Brewsters in England, Women's Work in a Changing World, 13 to 1600, was a colossal disappointment. I wanted to know about the rituals surrounding drinking in medieval England, the songs, the games, the parties. Bennett provided none of that information. I liked how the book showed ale and beer brewing as an economic activity, but the reader gets lost in the details of prices and wages. I was more interested in the private lives of the women Brewsters. The book was divided into 8 long chapters, and I can't imagine why anyone would ever want to read it. Okay, so let's look at the critique of sample number 2.
That's harsh.
Right. There's no shortage of judgments in this review, but the student does not display a working knowledge of the book's argument. The reader has a sense of what the student expected of the book, but no sense of what the author herself set out to prove. Although the student gives several reasons for the negative review, those examples do not clearly relate to each other as part of an overall evaluation. In other words, in support of the specific thesis, this review is indeed an assessment, but not a critical one. Okay, so now let's look at short sample number 3. And again, this just sort of illustrates what you're going to be doing in the latter part of your book review as you evaluate and critique it. So let's look at short sample number 3. One of feminism's paradoxes, one of the challenges many of its optimistic histories, is how patriarchy remains persistent over time. Patriarchy meaning male patriarchy or male dominance, okay? While Judith Bennett's Ale, Beer, and Brewsters in England, Women's Work in a Changing World, 13 to 1600, recognizes medieval women as historical actors through their ale brewing, it also shows that female agency had its limits with the advent of beer. I had assumed that those limits were religious and political, but Bennett shows how a patriarchal equilibrium shut women out of economic life as well. Her analysis of women's wages in ale and beer production proves that a change in women's work does not equate to a change in working women's status. Contemporary feminists and historians alike should read Bennett's book and think twice when they crack open their next brewski. Now, I'm going to give you a critique of the sample, but I want to showcase and really hit home the point that Passing was a book written way back when, almost 100 years ago. But it's actually a book that has a lasting legacy. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to change your theoretical analysis into a book review. So you are writing theoretical analysis, but you're also including a book review where your voice is going to shine through, even though it is in the third person. Okay, so let me go to critique of sample number 3. So this student's review avoids the problems of the previous 2 examples. It combines balanced opinion and concrete example, a critical assessment based on an explicitly stated rationale, and a recommendation to a potential audience, not to every audience, but to a potential one. The reader gets a sense of what the book's author intended to demonstrate. Moreover, the student refers to an argument about feminist history in general that places the book in a specific genre and that reaches out to a general audience. The example of analyzing wages illustrates an argument. The analysis engages significant intellectual debates, and the reasons for the overall positive review are plainly visible. The review offers criteria, opinions, and support with which the reader can agree or disagree. Okay, so I wanted to show you these samples specifically, and I'm actually going to write this in here, if I can, through Zoom. See samples, and I'm going to write that in right here. Right, the reason why I am doing that is that I want to make sure that you are understanding the context of these samples. Okay,
But
so
then I had a question.
yes.
So we're doing it on, because I know the book I have has quicksand as one book and passing as another. So we're just doing it on passing.
That's correct.
Okay. So for the assignments, we're also supposed to do it on just passing or both?
That's correct. Yeah.
Just passing.
Do you have the, yes, do you have the Deborah McDowell version? The purple and black book?
I think I'm not sure, but I have the one that you posted. So
Yes,
probably.
that's the reason why I posted that, is that the introduction is critical.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah.
Yeah, the introduction is really critical, so that's why I assigned that one, but you're only reading passing. And
Okay.
if you have
Okay.
a different book option, that's fine. That's just passing, that's fine too.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right, so a few generations to keep in mind. So please review the book in front of you, not the book you wish the author had written. You can and should point out shortcomings or failures, but don't criticize the book for not being something it was never intended to be. With any luck, the author of the book would worked hard to find the right words to express his or her ideas. You should attempt to do the same. Precise language allows you to control the tone of your review. Please never hesitate to challenge an assumption, approach, or argument. Be sure, however, to cite specific examples to back up your assertions carefully, and then try to present a balanced argument about the value of the book for its audience. You're entitled and sometimes obligated to voice strong agreement or disagreement. Okay, so we're doing it on the novel. So even though we're the audience and your book review should be to us in the class, you can point out a specific audience that would actually really appreciate this particular book outside of that audience as well. Okay. All right.
So we could like point out how like a failure to do something in her novel actually adds to her message and that she intended to do so and leave
Yes.
out a certain element.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. Yes, just like I started off saying that what's not being said is just as important as what is being said, and what's not being said may be extremely purposeful by the author and extremely, I lost my word here, powerful. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so we will end our class today. And teacher track